I think I've got to address the Andrew Bridgen thing yet again. Some people have made some very interesting comments last night and this morning, and some of them are worth pointing out. Clarissa, for example, says, in most parts of the world, the anti-COVID vaccine was voluntary. Being murdered by Nazis was not. Rock Lover, however, says the tweet he quoted, that's Andrew Bridgen, came from an Israeli doctor, good luck, calling an Israeli anti-Semitic. Now, even if the Holocaust quote comes from an Israeli doctor, it's still offensive. And I don't believe I actually called the quote or Mr. Bridgen anti-Semitic. I called it offensive. And I believe that's the general view. It was offensive. The Holocaust is a troubling subject for any form of parallels because it's a unique event. It's an absolute event, and it's a symbol of absolute evil in our history. To criticize the Manston Holding Centre, for example, as resembling a concentration camp, which I've done, and which it clearly did, whether in its Nazi form or its British origin in the Boer War, it's a form of incarceration in temporary huts. And the optics do not look great and did not look great. And anyone championing these huts as a credible form of hospitality in the 21st century in the UK, I believe, is absolutely evil. The association is wrong. But the image of a concentration camp is not the Holocaust itself. It's an aspect of the Holocaust, certainly. It's something that the Holocaust used. But the Holocaust is more absolute. There is a big difference between criticizing Suella Braverman for her use and overfilling of temporary huts and Andrew Bridgen's claim that the vaccine rollout was like the Holocaust. The vaccine rollout was, as Clarissa points out, a voluntary engagement. The Holocaust was involuntary. The Holocaust was set up to kill. The vaccine rollout, even if it has caused a spike in deaths, was not set up to kill. It was not set up to literally decimate our population. Decimation, of course, as you know, would be a Roman punishment where 1 in every 10 people in the army was killed. I don't think even in the wildest conspiracy theories, anyone is suggesting that the vaccine was designed to kill. So I think there are 3 points. First, even if the number of deaths resulting from the vaccine can be proven to exceed the 6 million plus deaths in the Holocaust, and I would, of course, include the targeting of Poles and Russians, Slavs, gay people, Romani, Serbs, Jews, and communists in that in that classification of the Holocaust. The motive. So even if the number of deaths can be proven to exceed or proven to be near those generated by the Holocaust, the motive is dissimilar. And it is the motive of mass extermination, of genocide, that marks off the Holocaust as a unique event. It's not specifically the numbers involved. That's the first point. The second point is the madness of conspiracy theories and of misinformation. And I think unless one's prepared to attribute names to sources, then again it just becomes he said, she said, and it becomes a sort of madness. So the fact that Andrew Bridgen doesn't even stand by his quotation, that he pulled it down from Twitter within hours of putting it up, is one thing. Secondly, he talks about a consultant cardiologist who, blah, 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 blah. Well, if Rocklaver, who doesn't have a proper name, says this is an Israeli cardiologist, well, great. I mean, I'm very impressed. The tweet he quoted came from an Israeli doctor. Good luck calling an Israeli an anti-Semite. Well, please, Rocklaver, tell me the name of that Israeli doctor. Let's have the quote. I can't find it anywhere on the internet. So your sources seem to be greater than mine. That may well be true. But why are you hiding those sources? This is the problem with conspiracy theories, that it's all babble and not information. And until we get information, we can't make a sound judgment. Finally, the third point is really in the language that is used. So it's not only the language, it's not only the use of the word Holocaust, which is bad enough, but Andrew Bridgen talks about the biggest crime against humanity since the Holocaust, the biggest crime. Now, for an MP to use the term crime, even if he's reporting what someone else has said, this is, of course, a well-proven way of MPs getting in their barbed comments to attribute them to somebody else. The biggest crime, well, the use of the term crime for a government-sponsored and parliament-endorsed rollout of a vaccine, this is contempt of Parliament. And Andrew Bridgen shouldn't be surprised that he gets the whip removed for that. Now, this is not to undervalue the opinions of people like Dr Aseem Malhotra, who was on the BBC, I think, or Sky yesterday, who worries that COVID vaccine may be a contributor to cardiovascular deaths. But the research so far has not been confirmed. And I would be much more inclined to listen to people like Martin Stern, a Holocaust survivor who himself is or worked as an immunologist and who was horrified by Andrew Bridgen's comment. Martin Stern says that people in a position of public responsibility like Andrew Bridgen owe us, the public, a debt of due diligence. Where is Bridgen's due diligence? It simply isn't there. He is gossiping. He is gossiping, and he's not naming names. Before they open their mouths, says Mr. Stern, about an issue like this, they should inform themselves, they should get expert advice. Andrew Bridgen has not done that. He has failed in his duty to his constituents and to the British public. Mr. Stern was born in Holland. He survived the Nazi concentration camps, and then he moved to the UK and trained as a doctor. And he's dedicating his life now to the memory of the Holocaust and to ensuring people don't use that term, use the Holocaust as a cheap way of scoring political points and of demonstrating, confirming the ignorance of history. Andrew Bridgen, he says, his response reflects an ignorance, mind-boggling ignorance. He wouldn't be saying that if he had even a reasonable idea of what the Holocaust is about. The systematic murder of 6 million Jewish people by the Nazi German regime and their allies during the Second World War. And Rishi Sunak is absolutely right to say that Andrew Bridgen has crossed a line, that his remarks were utterly unacceptable, and Simon Hart, the chief whip, is quite right to have removed the whip. Lord Mann is the government's independent advisor on anti-Semitism, and he says that Andrew Bridgen should be barred from standing for the Conservatives at the next election. There is no possibility. He says that Bridgen can be allowed to stand at the next election. He cannot claim that he didn't realise the level of offence that his remarks cause. He cannot claim that he didn't know. Ignorance is not an excuse. but ignorance is certainly what he manifests in extraordinary degree, and I would not want to be represented in Parliament by an ignorant individual like Bridgen. And it's his language rather than the issue of any form of danger that the COVID vaccine carries that is at the heart of this issue. And people who are making comments to my video need to reflect a little, really should listen to what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying it terribly well, of course. But if I'm not saying it well enough, please clarify, please help. But please don't put words into my mouth. And please, before you comment in a sort of derisory way, think carefully about what you're saying, because don't trample other people's history into the ground, please. What you say about me doesn't really matter. I have quite broad shoulders, frankly, from that point of view. But please don't trample history into the ground in an attempt to make a fairly nebulous point. And if somebody does have details of who this consultant that Andrew Bridgen was quoting, the identity of that consultant, please, can you let me know? I'd be really interested.